皆様こんにちは。ベーカーのマッケンジー法律事務所の弁護士の増本です。本日より複数回にわたりまして、日本企業のアメリカへの直接投資をテーマとしてビデオシリーズをお届けいたします。日本からは多くの企業がアメリカに会社を設立したり、アメリカの会社を買収したりしておりますが、本ビデオシリーズでは各テーマごとに弊社アメリカオフィスの弁護士をスピーカーに迎え、日本企業がアメリカに投資をする際の留意点や最近のトレンドといったものをご説明させていただきたいと考えております。本日は第1回目といたしまして、ワシントン DC オフィスパートナーのJennifer Semko弁護士がスピーカーとなり、いわゆる総論といたしまして、昨今のアメリカへの直接投資の動向や概要、またCFIUSについてお話をさせていただきたいと思います。Hi Jennifer, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here.
First of all, as you know, Japan is the top country investing in the United States. Could you give us a brief overview of foreign direct investment in the United States and investment from Japan?
Certainly, I'm happy to. Actually, the United States attracts more foreign direct investment than any other country in the world. And you are absolutely right that by most measurements, Japanese businesses have invested more in the U.S. than any other country. And so obviously the relationship between the U.S. and Japan is critically important to both countries. I thought I'd share some data from our Bureau of Economic Analysis. That's a U.S. government agency within our Department of Commerce. And it publishes a lot of information about foreign investment. And that data show that foreign investment in the U.S. is both very significant and also really growing. According to the BEA, when we consider the country of ultimate ownership of the foreign company, Japan is by far the top investing country with overall investments of about $783 billion in terms of total investment position at the end of 2023. And other countries at the top of the list include Canada with about $750 billion of investment, Germany, $650 or so billion of investment, and the United Kingdom. And so Japan and these three countries in recent years have accounted for, believe it or not, about half of all the cumulative foreign direct investment in the United States. And so in terms of what sectors we are seeing that are the beneficiaries of this foreign investment, about 41% of foreign direct investment currently goes into our manufacturing sector. And that's followed by finance and insurance. That sector gets about 11% of the foreign direct investment, and wholesale trade at about 10%. When we think about or look at Japanese foreign investment in the U.S., it is definitely most significantly in the manufacturing sector. And Japan is, not surprisingly, the largest investor in that sector. Japanese foreign investment accounts for a stock value of about $370 billion, or 16 or so percent of all foreign direct investment in U.S. manufacturing. And that includes things like transportation equipment. And that is actually the specific portion of manufacturing that gets the most foreign direct investment. And a lot of that is in automobile production. And so looking at that industry in particular, according to the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association, in 2023, Japanese automakers invested more than $61 billion in the United States, and that's a huge impact. And in fact, recent reports show that Japanese automakers produced 3.2 million vehicles, 3.9 million engines in U.S. factories, exported about 167,000 cars from U.S. plants, and employed 110,000 people in the United States. So it's having a very significant effect on the U.S. economy. It's a really important piece of the economic engine that drives the United States. And according to some reports, without foreign direct investment, the U.S. manufacturing gross domestic product, or GDP, would have been as much as 20% smaller in recent years than it turned out to be with the benefit of the foreign direct investment. And when you think about it, the benefits of foreign direct investment are more than just dollars injected into the economy. Japanese companies bring to the U.S. their experience, their technology, their know-how. They bring their success in other markets to the U.S. And some commentators point out that this investment, frankly, spurs competition and inspires U.S. companies, domestic companies, to improve their own businesses as well. Very much a win-win for everybody. And for Japanese companies and other foreign investors, they get the benefit of our very large and diverse market, our stable political environment, our advanced infrastructure and skilled labor force, and of course, the very robust legal protections for investors that are present here in the U.S. And of course, we're known for our culture of innovation and entrepreneurship, which can be very beneficial for foreign investors.
Thank you. So what are current trends in investing in the United States?
So as I noted before, one trend that has been around for a while and really is not changing is the very significant portion of foreign direct investment that goes to the manufacturing sector. And we're seeing that in recent years, chemicals manufacturing, particularly pharmaceuticals and medicines, that really accounts for the largest share of the manufacturing sector that is receiving this foreign investment. We're seeing a lot of foreign direct investment in the U.S. medical equipment and supplies manufacturing sector. That sector has tripled in the last 5 years or so. And of course, international investment in the U.S. semiconductor manufacturing sector has really grown. We've seen explosive growth. It's more than tripled since 2016. Other sectors that are receiving a lot of attention from foreign investors include renewable energy and environmental technology. That's driving a lot of foreign investment. And overall investment in environmental technologies accounted for about 1/3 of the total investment in 2023 by dollar value, which is pretty huge. And this includes capital expenditures connected to things like batteries, solar power, wind, electric power, and other renewable energy sources. We're also seeing that some of the fastest growth in cumulative foreign investment is in the retail trade sector. It's still not the largest portion of foreign investment, but it's growing. In the last five or so years, it's grown about 120%. And cumulative investment in real estate and the rental and leasing market has also really grown. It's more than doubled over the last few years. So those are some of the trends we're seeing.
So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was enacted in 2021, and the Inflation Reduction Act and the Tips and Science Act were enacted in 2022. What is the impact of these laws on investment in the United States? Will these laws increase foreign investment?
Well, in a nutshell, the answer is yes. These recent initiatives and laws will increase foreign investment and are designed to attract investment to the U.S. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA, that was a bipartisan spending bill meant to really spur investment in the U.S. infrastructure, including things like public transit, passenger rail, bridges, clean water, electric vehicle infrastructures, high-speed internet, clean energy, and other industries and sectors. But we also have to keep in mind that within the IIJA is also the Build America, Buy America Act. And that was enacted as part of IIJA in late 2021. And it creates a preference for U.S. content for infrastructure projects that involve federal government financial assistance. So a real incentive there to not just import supplies and products into the U.S., but to actually invest and manufacture those components in the U.S. So all iron, steel, and other manufactured products and construction materials that are used in the infrastructure projects from IIJA must be produced in the U.S. The Inflation Reduction Act was intended to fight inflation, but also invest in domestic energy production and manufacturing and reduce carbon emissions. And then you mentioned the CHIPS and Science Act, which, among other things, was designed to boost the American semiconductor industry through research, development, and production. Even though the U.S. invented the semiconductor, our government is disappointed that we produce only about 10% of the world's supply, and that statute and that initiative was intended to begin to change that. And in fact, almost immediately after the CHIPS and Science Act was passed, a number of global companies announced that they were going to make billions of dollars in additional investments in the American semiconductor manufacturing industry. So all of these laws, all of these initiatives are designed to trigger and to encourage businesses, both foreign and domestic, to invest in the United States. And these laws are creating a lot of opportunities for companies in a wide variety of sectors.
National security has become an increasingly sensitive issue, and we assume that foreign investment will be discussed from this perspective more than before. What are national security concerns for the United States? Also, could you explain briefly about CFIUS?
Sure. You're absolutely right that in recent years, there's been a lot of focus on national security concerns that are triggered by foreign investment into the United States. And one very significant concern is giving foreign investors access to things like sensitive data or sensitive technology. And foreign investment can also trigger other concerns like the potential loss of control over supply chains or impairment of the US's critical infrastructure. And there's increased concern about foreign control of defense-related industries or other sectors that are important to and support national defense. So all of these concerns have been rising in recent years, in particular because of the significant rise of China. So one way that the US government tries to balance the benefits of foreign investment and all of these national security concerns is through CFIUS, which you mentioned. CFIUS is the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. It's been around since the 1970s, but it's been more active in recent years, and it's been strengthened over the years by more recent legislation. It's essentially an interagency committee of the US government that reviews the national security implications of foreign deals, foreign investment in the US. It's chaired by the Secretary of the Treasury, and it is comprised of representatives from 16 other federal departments and agencies. So what CFIUS does, it will review foreign investment, foreign transactions, and make recommendations to the President of the United States regarding whether to accept or reject or limit a transaction that involves foreign investment. And sometimes CFIUS is criticized for its secrecy, but given the national security implications of the work it's doing, the defenders of CFIUS argue that there really is no other option than to keep their work quite confidential. So what kinds of things does CFIUS take into consideration? Well, in September of 2022, President Biden issued an executive order providing a bit of formal guidance to CFIUS regarding the factors that he would like them to consider when they're doing their national security reviews. And he instructed CFIUS to consider 5 specific things: the transaction's effect on the resilience of critical US supply chains, because as I mentioned earlier, the potential loss of control or jeopardy to supply chains is one very significant concern. He also instructed them to consider the transaction's effect on US technological leadership in certain industries. He instructed them to consider investment trends that might have consequences given the transaction's impact on national security. He asked them to take particular consideration of cybersecurity risks and risks to the personal sensitive data of U.S. residents and citizens. So as we've seen in recent years, national security concerns can sometimes be used to block a foreign investment. One prime example of that is the current political opposition to Nippon Steel acquiring U.S. steel. Publicly, President Biden and former President Trump, now President-elect Trump, have made it known that they oppose that acquisition. And it's widely believed that they are in part influenced by the strong opposition of the United States United Steelworkers Union, so the labor union that represents steelworkers. CFIUS is still considering the transaction, but if CFIUS were to recommend that the acquisition be rejected, this would give the president a legal basis to block the deal, and that review is underway. We could talk for a really long time about CFIUS and Nippon Steel, but our time is almost up. I encourage everybody to tune in to our next session, which will discuss in more detail the issues with the Nippon Steel transaction here in the U.S. And then our third session will explore CFIUS and the effects of national security on foreign investment in a little more detail. So hopefully everyone will come back to hear more about those topics.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your insightful discussion today. 本日はご視聴いただきましてありがとうございました。先ほどジェニファーからお話がありました通り、次回は日本製鉄の US スチール買収事案を取り上げたいと思っております。引き続き本ビデオシリーズをご覧になっていただけますと幸いです。本日はありがとうございました。